arch, and you can see the menorah. You can see the Romans taking and plundering the riches of the temple.
I got a precept for you, real quick one.
Khan.
The book of Joel 3 and 5, it says, "Because ye have taken my silver and my gold, and have carried into your temples my goodly pleasant things." You just saw an example of that with that illustration on the Ark of Titus. And Titus was one of those devils that fulfilled that prophecy, that took the Lord's goodly and pleasant things, carried it into their temples.
That's right.
And you better believe, to this day, the top banking family, the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, they have some of those artifacts of ours that belong to us that we had way back then. They possess those artifacts in their possession. And that's another way how we know that they know who we are. You know, according to prophecy and according to the fact that they have those artifacts showing us as we really were back then, showing the real Jews, you know?
Yeah, okay, I'm going to read this again, right? This is, it says depiction. When you look up Jewish-Roman wars, it'll take you, one of the sites will take you to Wikipedia, and it says depiction of Roman triumph celebrating the sack of Jerusalem on the Arch of Titus in Rome. The procession features the menorah and other vessels taking the riches taken from the second temple, which is a fulfillment of prophecy that the Messiah made, all right? It says date 66 to 135 CE, 69 years. Location, Rome, Judea, Cyprus, Cyrenaica, Mesopotamia, all right? Results, decisive Roman victory, meaning they destroyed us. There's a coin. See if you can get that coin. Judicapta. They commemorated a coin to the downfall of the Jews, the real Jews, not those gutter rats that are over there today. Destruction of Jerusalem and the temple. Mass execution of Judean population, execution meaning death, and diaspora of survivors, meaning they went up into they went into the interiors of Africa, and they went up into Europe. In other words, they were getting away from the Romans because the Romans were slaughtering them and their children. All right. Yeah. Schism between Judaism and early Christianity, which the early Christians were Israelites, Jews. Consolidation of non-Messianic Jewish sects into rabbinical Judaism. Consolidation of Jewish center in Galilee. Galilee was going up there in Asia Minor, going up towards Europe. Territory, Roman Judea. Remain under Roman control, renamed and merged into the province of Syria, Palestina. That's why it's called, that's why you had the war against the Palestinians. The real Palestinians go back to the so-called Kemetic people, the Philistines. See, if you don't know this history, you don't know how to put it together. You got these black Kemetic guys talking about the Israelites never existed. Well, what's this war all about? This is an actual historical account. All right? So the way we got to America is by what? We fled. We were chased out of Jerusalem. We went into the interiors of Africa. We went up in the different parts of Europe, and we were scattered throughout the whole planet, man. Get me Luke 21:24. So you had to know how to. That's why you have Moors. They're always talking about the Moors. Where did the Moors come from? They didn't come from no goddamn Morocco, Marrakesh. They came from Israel. The Moors, their line goes back to the Israelites. Okay? That's why I read that scripture, and it led me to other scriptures. It says belligerents, Roman Empire, Jewish zealots. The word zealot, by the way, is the Hebrew word kwanan, Quanan, which means zealot, all right, which is like the rebels at that time, Jewish rebels, Kukba army, all right, commanders and leaders, Hanan, Eleazar ben Hananiah, Bar meaning is Aramaic, Guy Ora, Eleazar, John. So these are some of the actors that came against the Roman persecution. All right. It said great revolt, 30,000. Beth Haran, Beth meaning house of Haran, 60,000. Siege of Jerusalem. All right. Great revolt, 25,000 plus Jewish militias, 20,000 Idumeans. Now, Idumeans, you might, well, those talking about white people. No, you had Israelites living in Edom at the time because Edom was pushed out of there. So we lived among Edom, and then we ultimately going to take Edom pursuant to, not Obadiah, Amos. Amos 9 and 12. We shall possess Edom. Okay? So this is all history, man. Like I said, the reason why we're in America today, the reason why we were, brought together and put on slave ships to be brought from the west coast of Africa to the Americas, to Haiti, to the so-called West Indian Islands, all right, was to be distributed throughout those lands to be slaves. But like I said, they got us from Africa, but before we was in Africa, we were in Jerusalem, man. So these same devils that Sarnetta is saying you can't call a white man the devil now, and Polite is saying the white man's not his devil. Well, the reason why your black ass is over here is because of this damn devil, man. Now let's go back to I'll go back to it. Exodus 21:16, and he that stealeth a man and selleth him. Watch the movie Roots. Watch the movie Mandingo. Watch the movie Drum. Or watch the movie 12 Years a Slave. Watch the movie Ill-Gotten Gains. Watch the movie Django Unchained. All right? And he that stealeth a man and selleth him, they put us on auction blocks, or if he be found in his hand, that's why the Apostle Gabar said, we're still slaves to this very day. Because guess what? We're still found in his hand. And that word hand, when it goes back to the Hebrew, I think it should go back to kap, which means power. They have power over you. He shall surely be put to death. So when this man talk about, well, I didn't do nothing, and that was 200 years ago, I don't care if it was 2,000 years ago. Well, actually, it does go back 2,000 years ago, going back to the Romans, because you are the Romans all over again. Okay?
That's right. This is Luke 21:24. And they shall fall by the edge of the sword. It's talking about the nation of Israel at that time. And shall be led away captive into all nations, which that was part of the curses in the book of Deuteronomy, the 28th chapter, and others. And Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles, the other nations, until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled, meaning until their time is up for them to be destroyed and for us to be set back up into power. So that's what happened. So at this particular time, that's when Jerusalem was compassed about with armies. And when Jerusalem was compassed about with those armies, what happened was that the ones that understood what Yahushua said, they fled into the interiors of Africa and Europe and other different places. And then they were there for a period of about 1,500 years, so they were sold into slavery. And that's what took place. You had something?
Yeah, this is Joel 3:1. For behold, in those days and in that time, when I shall bring again the captivity of Judah and Jerusalem, I will also gather all nations and will bring them down into the valley of Jehoshaphat.
Right, which is the valley of Jehoshaphat, from the Hebrew Yahweh Shaphat, which means Yahweh's judgment. You know, which is the same thing we were speaking about earlier. You know, where the Northern Army of America is going to be brought to a land barren and desolate. That's over there in the Valley of Jehoshaphat, where the Most High's judgment is going to take place. Go ahead.
And will plead with them there for my people and for my heritage Israel.
Right. So now you got to go back and you got to look at all the things that this devil did to our nation, beginning with the so-called Negroes, the so-called West Indians, the so-called Haitians that were brought over here to slavery, to serve slavery, that were castrated, that were whipped, whose women were raped, whose families were sold off into auctions, into different plantations. You know, to the onslaught of the Spaniards. You know, on the Taino, the Inca, the Arawaks. You know, and all the things that they did to them. The so-called U.S. cavalry and what they did to this Native American Indians, so-called Native American Indians, and then that's what you're going to pay for. You know, and there's many accounts of different things that are not even written on record that happened of the atrocities that you committed against the people of the Most High, and the Lord's going to deal with you. Go ahead, brother.
Whom they have scattered among the nations and parted my land. And they cast lots for my people and have given a boy for an harlot and sold a girl for wine that they might drink.
And that's what they did. The African, the real Africans, the Kemites, the real African, the Hamites, and the Ishmaelites, the Arabs, were the ones that grabbed up the Israelites that were on this on the western side of Africa and were selling them to the so-called white man to bring over here as slaves. Now, when they did that, those dark-skinned Africans or Hamites, they knew who to grab because we were different from them. We had different customs. You know, our people wore beards. You know, we wore garments, you know, with the fringes and the borders of blue and all that. So they knew who to grab and to give over into slavery unto the so-called white man, who in turn brought them over to this side of the world to down into the Caribbean islands to serve on the sugarcane fields and other agriculture that had to be taken care of down there because they put so much hell on the Taino and the Arawak peoples there, you know, that they weren't able to keep up with that demand, and a lot of them were dropping dead. So they needed a new crop of slaves to take over, you know, and then from there they would bring them up into the interiors of America, you know, and that's why the so-called black man is here in this country to this day, you know, a product of slavery. Go ahead.
Yea, and what have ye to do with me, O Tyre and Zidon, and all the coast of Palestine? Will you render me a recompense?
Right, the Tyre and Sidon in ancient times that belonged to the Hamites. Today, the so-called Arabs, Ishmaelites, are the ones that are controlling and governing those regions. Just like even today, and the majority of people that's running Egypt are them Arabs, them Ishmaelites, you know, because they went from the Hamites. They were conquered by the Ishmaelites going back during beginning from 600 A.D. when the Arabs started taking over all of those regions at that time.
Yeah, and that's a case of removing the landmark.
Yep, that's right.
Because at one, like you said, at one time you had the real Africans that controlled that land of Egypt. Then you had the Greeks, the so-called white people. Now you have the so-called Arabs.
Yep, that's right.
And if ye will recompense me, swiftly and speedily will I return your recompense upon your own head.
Right. In other words, even if you had the means to pay back the Most High for the atrocities that you did to us, the Most High will return that back on your head because you still got to pay no matter what. Go ahead.
Because ye have taken my silver and my gold, and have carried into your temples my goodly pleasant things. The children also of Judah and the children of Jerusalem have you sold unto the Grecians, that ye might remove them far from their border.
Right, and that's what happened. And once the removal came far from the borders, we were never able to go back to that land again. You know, so that's why in the law. In the book of Deuteronomy 28, it said that thou shalt see it no more again. Meaning we weren't going to see that land again until Yahweh Shai comes back to deliver us. That's when we're going to be able to be brought back to that land. That's when it's going to be safe to be back in that land, not now. You know, it ain't safe to be in that land right now because the Lord is going to destroy the whole land of Israel. No, the Russians are going to be the ones that drop the bombs on them, you know?
I looked up, I looked up a lot of things, but I looked up, let me go back. Okay, I looked up Dahomey, Fort Judah, and the first site that popped up was Qaida, right? So I clicked on Qaida. Wida, historically also called Wida, Judah, Juida by the French, and Ajuda by the Portuguese. So they knew that we were the Jews, okay? It said formerly the kingdom of Wida, which is another way of saying Judah because it said Qaida, Wida, Judah, Juida, Ajuda. Okay?
Like that movie Falling Down. You know, Apostle Tara pointed that out to us. There was a Jake in there when he had the scene with he had the rocket launcher, and then there was the Jake had a shirt and the shirt said what? Cause Quado, which is another way of saying Judah. But and they right, which goes back to Yoda, which is Judah, the Jedi, which is also Judah, you know, and these devils know who Israel is.
The movie Total Recall, the original one with Arnold Schwarzenegger, the hidden ideologue that was under the so-called white man's shirt that came out of his chest. What was he called? Quado, which is Judah, because there's different ways of saying Judah. The Portuguese called Judah Ajuda. The French called Judah Juida. The original name Qaida or Judah. So that proves that the Israelites, when they fled the onslaught of the Romans besieging Jerusalem, one main place that they went to is in Africa, and they built communities in Africa. So just like the elder said, the apostle said, the other Africans knew, and there were Israelites that enslaved other Israelites, man, because you had different tribes, right? So you don't got to spend a whole lot of money to buy books, because it's right here on Wikipedia, man. Another name. All right, let me go to this here. All right. I read about that. It says, formerly the kingdom of Wida, so called for the Wida bird of paradise. Wida means Judah, okay? They named the bird after Judah. Is a city on the Atlantic coast of the Republic of Benin. Benin is a Hebrew word meaning son or son of. That's what the word goes back to. So these were Israelites. The Nigerians, the Yoruba, which Nas come out of Yoruba. All right. You have all these. What's this guy? That famous actor. He won an Academy Award. What's the dude? Morgan Freeman. All right. He's Igbo. Forrest Whitaker, Igbo. Queen Latifah, Igbo, Nigerian. Yoruba,